All right, welcome back to the channel. So this video is going to pick up right where the other one left off, and if you missed that video, I'll put a link up here somewhere, but we're just going to get right into the top coat. The only prep I need to do first is according to the directions on that primer, you just need to lightly sand any areas that you want to be smooth. So there's a few areas here. I'm going to go a little bit crazy on the sanding on this tank because this was my kind of my test piece to get the HVLP dialed in. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but there is a texture on here, and I would like this to be smooth. This is right at your eyeball level when you're standing next to the tractor. So. Okay, so here's the paint I'm using. This is the paint I've been brushing on up until this point, but this is matched to Highway Yellow. You can see, if you can read that, Caterpillar Highway Yellow. This doesn't have a recommendation for tip size, but I remember this is a fairly thick paint. I didn't mention this in the last video, but my tip size is a 1.4 millimeter. I think that'll be fine for this. I got the same thinner, and then I also have hardener. The ratio on this is 1:16, which my little measuring cups do not do. So I'll just do 16 ounces to 2 tablespoons. I think that's right. And then I will add reducer as needed. I'm not going to follow the ratio chart for the thinner. I'm just going to add it, and I kind of know what thinness I want. So in the end of the last video, I was happy with how it was going down, but my experience with airless though, it's way faster. It's like maybe this speed, and I was going that speed. So and the consensus in the comments was the same, as it wasn't thin enough. So I'm going to add a little bit more thinner, and I'm just going to kind of tweak it. And I know the consistency I think that I want. I spent enough time last time with it to kind of get an idea. I'm also going to start with smaller batches. I haven't used this hardener before, so I don't know if it's going to start like, if I make like a gallon batch, is it going to just start setting up while I'm still spraying? I don't want to waste paint, so I need some stirring on this. I bought 2 gallons of this stuff. They're both from the same lot, in case I don't show it, but I've learned this the hard way in the past. When I start using this gallon down, once it's about halfway, I'm going to start refilling it with the other gallon of this I have, just so the color stays consistent. I've always worried about one of these falling off when I'm pouring, but it's never actually happened. And I've used these for gallons and gallons and gallons of paint. Stuff stick. Try that. I might need to go a tad thinner, but I'm going to try this and see how it works. In the primer video, I started at 29 PSI and I ended up at 35. So I'll start at 29 again, and then I'll just adjust up if I need a little bit more oomph to get this paint out. Looking pretty smooth, no runs. I do see some runs right there. This looks kind of bad. Okay, it's the next day. I'm about to do the second coat, but let's take a quick look at what we got here. I got the light out so we can get some detail. So you can see I put it on pretty light in areas. I did screw up in a few spots though. Over here, you probably make that out. There's a little bit of a run going on here. This was like the worst spot, I think. And then over here, it's like a little bit thicker. I think it was too thin and it kind of drained down a little bit. The good news though is on this is the hardest surface to paint because it's so smooth. And I managed to not get a single run on here. It's smooth all the way down. There is some imperfections obviously in the surface, but so I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm planning on doing 3 coats. I used almost half a gallon to do this first coat, so that's right on schedule. I have 2 gallons. Didn't have any trouble with this stuff setting with the hardener, so I'm making a bigger batch tonight. Oh yeah. All right, second coat done. About to start the third coat. No real drama to report. It all went on pretty well. Can definitely use a third coat though. I can see spots like there. I'm gonna have to come in here later with a brush and get, like there's just areas I can't hit with a gun without causing runs. Still no runs on this. This is looking really good, nice and smooth. It's gonna be nice. Oh, also yesterday I mixed 48 ounces at the same time, which is a significant amount, and that was all I needed for the whole night. So I didn't have any issues with the hardener setting it up, so I'll just do the same thing tonight. It's been curing for 2 days, the third coat, so let's take a quick look. It's definitely yellow. I'm curious to see how this looks in the sun. This is extremely bright. Turned out pretty good. This is definitely a high gloss paint. I mean, without any sanding or anything, it's pretty smooth. No real running problems. I didn't have many big runs, just a couple tiny ones. Like this is an example right here, but the fender goes right there. Who cares? Okay, it's yellow. Just gonna do a little bit of touch up here. Places where the gun couldn't reach. For some reason, the primer all got back here, but no paint really did. I think it's because I was spraying the primer on so thick. This is a lot easier than using the brush like last time. Okay, I think we're gonna call this good. I just brushed it on pretty thick. You can see there's, you know, not perfect, but I think it'll be okay. The front part's pretty much covered by the skid plate. Back here, I might do another coat with a brush back here just because I can see some primer showing through and it'll bug me. But yeah, you can see it's pretty sloppy on there. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and call major painting operations completed here. I'm pretty happy with it. There was one area that I know it's gonna look bad, and you're not gonna be able to see this on camera, but I can somewhat see little spots of primer shining through the paint. I was planning on fixing it, but then I looked at the old pictures of this thing. When the brush cage is on it, you can't really even see any of this too well. So I think I'm just gonna let it be and just continue on. You're probably wondering why I'm like overthinking the paint so much. And the reason is I'm really just using this as an opportunity. I've never sprayed with HVLP before, and I would eventually like to paint my 240Z. So I'm just using this as a learning opportunity to learn what I can of the process. And you know, for example, I think the reason here, I mean, I did 3 coats, but I think I was doing it too thin at the end there. I think the last coat should have been a little bit thicker. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to learn what I can. And at the end of the day, all this is gonna get scraped off the first time I use it anyways, right? So even if I did a terrible job, which I'd rate this as like a, I don't know, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, it doesn't matter because it's all gonna get left on the ground anyway. I'll never forget the first time I sat on this machine and I was like looking at all the stuff which was covered in pine needles and rusted out. Didn't know what half of it did. It all seems so simple now. Use my garage door again, this is great. Got overspray on this boot. Come on, Matt. All right, trying to remember how the engine hangs on here. So looks like this spring, there's a notch, there's two notches up inside of the mainspring here for these two clamps. So it sits up in there and then hooks on there, and then the engine has two mounting holes on each side for that thing. I'm gonna go ahead and clean these up first. Ready, clean. I did get new pins, but they're not gonna be here for a couple days, but I can easily swap these out. This one is not even really a pin. Someone has created this bolt, which is bent. Speaking of paint, you guys gotta check this out. So this is a old fuel line, and this was underneath the fuel tank, so it's never seen really sun. And you can see the original yellow underneath, the unfaded yellow. And I was a little bit suspicious of this paint. I thought it was too bright because I'd never really seen an antique cat before up close. But it's actually a pretty close match. When it was wet, when I pulled it out, it was wet. It was like exactly the same, but now it's kind of faded a little bit. Okay, now for the clutch. I haven't touched this since I put it together, what, almost a year ago. Try to make sure it's not rusting. A little bit of rust. So I think the trick is getting this lined up so it goes into the flywheel properly. Looks like it's not going to be easy. We'll find out. There we go. Doesn't look quite right. I guess this has the hole in the top, so I think this goes into the cup. There we go. The welding job on this cup doesn't look original. Okay, screw this up. Yeah, that's supposed to go back there. It's been a while. Bear with me here. Maybe I should wash my hands. It's a good reason not to paint your threads, stuff like this. This thing is a little bit heavy, not gonna lie. Gotta screw this into all the levers here. There we go. Jeez. So I think I need to put this nut on here before I adjust anything. Okay, now I'll tighten this. What happens if I pull the clutch in this here? Nothing. There we go. I have it. Ah, it's in. All right. So it's just kind of in there a little bit. I mean, it's not super tight, but pull this back and there we go. All right, so I guess it's time to put the engine in. The plan here, in case I don't film it all, is that the whole transmission has to tilt up quite a bit above this spring. And that's because the spring rides in here, so it has to clear this, so it has to go about 6 inches past. These I've zip tied up on each side just so it can clear the spring, and then the spring will just hit and it'll let me know when it's in far enough. I haven't tightened those down yet. And then to control the height, this is a little bit different than a non-winch D4. So I'm going to control the height from back here. I have jack stand on here right now, but I'll put my floor jack in here and control and raise it up. So it's going to be pointing up, and then hopefully I can get that engine in there at an angle and pop it in. Then the last step on here, I think once I have it all adjusted how I want it, you got to come in here and, if you can see that, tighten that. So there's a clamp right here which keeps it from spinning these little arms here. In case you're new, in a previous video I went through this whole clutch, replaced a bunch of stuff, and then kind of dry fitted it. So I'll put a link for that up in this corner right here probably. Yeah, I've already kind of been over this. That's kind of why I'm just throwing it in here. Whoa! I think the problem I'm going to have here is not enough headroom to get this at the right angle. I'm not sure if this thing's going to have the height. Oh, this makes me nervous. Uh-oh, is that as high as it goes? So I guess I can't use this. It's kind of what I was afraid of. All right, trying a slightly different angle. It's kind of hard without the adjuster. Okay, so the bell housing has kind of cleared this spring. Well, it needs to go in a little bit further. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this just a little bit, and we're going to try to get it in there. I just couldn't get it in with a steeper angle on the engine. There wasn't enough height on this jack. Let's see. I can lower it. We'll just have to lower it and see here. This angle actually looks decent. The engine is twisted, but that doesn't matter. Once I get the input shaft started, I'll be home free. It's almost in there. So it looks like I don't have the clutch tight enough, and the teeth got pushed down, so I'm gonna have to pull it back out here. So there is some green grease, which means it got into the pilot bearing, but this is what hung me up, is this whole clutch is slid down. So close. What's going on here? My two. All right. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. Really what I'm trying to do is just get the clutch in all the way around so I can release it. Okay, well, I just can't get it quite lined up, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna release the clutch and try to, I can get my hand in there and I can feel the teeth, so maybe I can work it in. Oh, I finally did it. So this is extremely difficult, but what I did was I got it so that clutch disc was right up against the flywheel and trying to almost engage. And then I reached in here with my hand and I kind of adjusted it till it would almost slot in. Then I put my forehead right here for balance and I reached over and tightened this clamp. And now, so I can reach in here, my hand is inside the clutch case and I can wiggle the clutch, but the clutch are definitely in the flywheel. So, oh man. Now that it's in, the clutch is set, I'm just using a ratchet strap. I need to just twist it down a little bit. It's really, really close though. Ooh, that's it. Never thought I'd be using woodworking clamps on this thing, but here I am. I'm so relieved right now. It's 10:30 at night. I started this at like 7:30. Would have helped a lot if I had my crane in here or if I had the load leveler. I think that would have helped a lot. You know, before I close this all the way up, I'm gonna run, almost forgot about this. I'm gonna run a bead of silicone around it just so water doesn't get in there. Yeah, this is slightly harder than a car transmission. Whoa. All right, it's the next day. I've had some time to think about what happened here. So, first of all, let me just say, it did go together well. I didn't break anything. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't even skin a knuckle doing this. I just took my time and I let it go in at its own pace. That being said, it did take 3.5 hours to get this engine in. It was a complete fight. And the issue is the way that the manual tells you to do it. They want you to angle that transmission case up, right? Well, the problem is this, if you have an engine hoist, so that engine hoist keeps the engine at a constant angle, this is at an angle. So let's say you get them lined up, as soon as you move this an inch, then it's misaligned, right? So then you have to lower that and then change that angle. It's just a complete nightmare. If I was gonna do it again and I was smart, I would take that spring out, the main spring, I would level this transmission case out so it's perfectly level. I would use a load leveler and level that out so it's perfectly level when it's on the hoist. Then I would just slide it right in. It should be way easier to do it that way. You only have to align it in this dimension instead of all of the dimensions. And then once it's in, you can jack the whole thing up and slide that spring back in. I think that would be way easier. But all that being said, there is no way I would ever do this again using an engine hoist. I mean, I own a gantry crane. It's just over my excavator right now. But if I ever have to do this again, it's going to be a gantry crane. No idea if water is going to get in over here. Still waiting for the replacement pins, but these, you can swap these out easily, I think. This part obviously didn't get painted, but that's not a big deal. The skid plate's going to cover all this anyways. Okay, well here's the original drawbar. And if this thing could talk, it wouldn't be able to because it would be dead. But this thing has just been destroyed. I'm not going to paint this. If you watch my last unlisted video, and I'll put a link over here or here somewhere. But I found a new winch for somebody. And I think I remember the drawbar on that machine was actually in really good condition. So I'm going to steal that drawbar probably. And then just toss this one in the scrap heap because it's it's lived its life fully. Is that right? Yeah. By the way, I mentioned it before, but you want to be using marine grade grease. There we go. Now, before I put the radiator on, this is the PTO shaft for the hydraulic pump, which goes through the radiator, goes on here. Some grease isn't hard in there, that's a good sign. There we go. Degrease everything, clean it out. Ooh, yeah, I'll replace that. Okay, so if you missed the video where I rebuilt this radiator, and I'll put a link down here in the corner to it, but I'd never really worked with an iron core radiator before. Thankfully to you guys though, a lot of people in the comments suggested painting the core. So I got this is Eastwood Radiator Black. You know, also in that video, a lot of people got upset when I said I wasn't going to use the oil cooler. Let me rephrase what I meant by that. So when I said I didn't need the oil cooler, apparently some people interpreted that as you don't need an oil cooler, which is the furthest thing from what I said. But Caterpillar over-engineered. I mean, this engine makes like 50 horsepower and it has like a 6-gallon sump or something like that. They realized that they over-engineered it and that the oil cooler was not necessary. And in fact, later models of the D47U, they themselves deleted the oil cooler because it was not needed. But it's an extremely common mod just for this engine, just for this Caterpillar. There's also like the D2, I think, is the same thing. It's just, it's not necessary for this engine. I'm not saying for all diesel engines. That would be ridiculous. But anyway, in the next video, I'm going to really focus on getting this thing started. So to do that, I need the cooling system, which is why I started painting that, and that's about to get mounted. And then I also need to get the fuel system done. So I want to put the fuel tank in, but to put the fuel tank in, you got to have the fenders on because the fuel tank sits on the fenders. So I got to paint the fenders. I was originally talking about spraying the fenders, but I think I'm just going to roll them because this paint lays down really, really, really smooth, even with a brush. So I think rolling will look just as good as the spray. All in all, I'm not super happy with the spray. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. But that's kind of why I spent a lot of time doing it, just so I could learn a lot about it, as I mentioned before. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon. I think I'm going to be able to chug through this pretty quickly, and within, I think, 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to see this thing running, which is I've been waiting for over a year, and I'm sure you have too. So I'll see you soon.